Hi, it's Rita Wilkins, a downsizing designer. So I ran into a client the other day who recently downsized. And the very first thing she said to me was, Rita, why did it take me so long to downsize? She went on to say how much happier she was now that they had that burden lifted, the expense of the big house, all of the stuff in it, all the stuff that they had accumulated, and that excessive amount of time, money, and energy that it took to care for their large property and all of their belongings. They had just returned from a month-long trip to South America, a trip that they had dreamed of for years, but they could never afford. They couldn't afford the time, maybe even the money, to leave for extended periods of time. But now they live a much smaller life, a smaller home, I should say, and that's the perfect size for them. So they now have more time to do some of those things that they've been thinking about. So they're a perfect example of why living with less is living more. They now have more time, money, freedom, and energy to pursue those things that matter most to them. And with fewer possessions and fewer responsibilities, they lighten their load, so they now have more of a carefree lifestyle, the one that they were yearning for. So if a simpler life with less stuff, less stress, less overwhelm appeals to you, maybe downsizing is in your future too. And if you're thinking of downsizing from a large home, one that suits your current needs and desires, that will allow for a new lifestyle, maybe that is something that you really want. So as baby boomers, it does make sense sometimes for us to have that larger home when we were raising our children. But then as life changes, so do we. And as we enter a new stage of our life, perhaps as an empty nester, retirement, maybe we've had a divorce or death of a spouse, the desire to have more mobility, flexibility, and less responsibility becomes pretty appealing. So what stops us from having what we most want? Many things prevent us from making that big decision, but it's mostly fear. So the fear that downsizing means downgrading your lifestyle, the fear of letting go of the memories associated with that big home, the family, and the fun times, and the fear of not knowing whether you'll even enjoy living in a smaller space. And there's fear and anxiety of not knowing where to even begin that overwhelming downsizing and decluttering process. And there's concern about letting go of what do you do with all of your stuff, including maybe your grandmother's heirlooms. So as a baby boomer myself, I experienced the same fears, the same concerns and emotions during my downsizing journey. But after a life-changing trip to Senegal, a third world country, where people had nothing, but they were happy, I returned home knowing that I wanted to live a simpler life with less. But the truth is that my closets were overflowing, made way too many clothes. My car could barely fit into the garage. My basement was filled with boxes I hadn't even opened in 10 years. And the other ugly truth was that I continued to buy more. I finally began to question whether all of these things were making me happy at all. Then, several years ago, I chose to downsize from my big home in the country and moved to a jewel box apartment in a city. And I was living that life that I was really looking forward to, that it was substantially less. It was 95% less, but I also had less stress, less stuff, and I had more life. So the downsizing design process, while I was downsizing, I developed a design process for downsizing that was intended to assist you with making your journey efficient, effective, and fun. And you can find this on my website, Design Services Ltd, or on my YouTube video, The ABCs of Downsizing with Rita Wilkins. It will help you strategize and organize your move while providing tips for building and scheduling your team who will assist you in implementing your project and also having fun, of course. A few tips when downsizing. Number one is phase your move. So move those large items so that you know that a good part of the process is underway. Next, the smaller items, and then edit. And second is don't clutter your new smaller space. Less is definitely more. And the third is to select furniture that is multifunctional, that will work better in your smaller home. So it's all about designing the life you love. At the heart of every change is a moment of truth. To have that life that I really wanted, to have the time, money, and freedom to focus on what I wanted, I discovered that I really didn't want more. I discovered I actually wanted and needed less. Like my client said, why didn't I downsize sooner? It's funny what we learn over the years, but that's why I love sharing this kind of information with you, because perhaps the light will go on for you too, that you do want less, or maybe you don't. But that's why I'm here.